You're in for a real treat this week as we geek out on conversion rate optimization with my guest, Oliver Kenyon. Oliver is the co-founder of ConversionWise and has been skyrocketing conversion rates for his clients and students for well over a decade. In this episode, we discuss the lessons he's learned during his journey as a serial entrepreneur, his framework of key elements for a high-converting landing page, and highlight a few surprising tools he uses in his daily life. As always, check out the transcripts, resources, and takeaways shared in this episode in our show notes at leadpages.com/podcast. And if you want to learn more from Oliver and his crew after listening to the discussion, be sure to use the coupon code LEADPAGES at conversionrateacademy.com to save on your first month. Now let's get into the discussion. Oliver, thank you so much for joining me from across the pond today for today's episode of the Lead Generation Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to get into it. I'm really looking forward to discussing some CRO and some other good stuff with you.
Excellent. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to digging into that as well. Before we get into that, let me ask you a question I love to ask our lead generation guests, which is, what's the most transformational way that you impact the lives of the clients that you work with at Conversion Rate Academy?
Wow, yeah, great question. So I think for us, we focus on design. So we focus in increasing your conversion rates through design frameworks. So CRO frameworks, having certain elements on your page to increase your conversion rate. So I think it's sharing our frameworks with people, implementing them for people, and literally doubling people's conversion rates overnight, which is super exciting.
Yeah, as you say, skyrocket their conversions.
Yeah, that's our favorite word. I think if I could trademark the rocket emoji, I would. That's the most used emoji I think I've ever used. So I love it.
I bet you would. So as I was researching a little bit more about what you've been up to over the last decade plus, you have been part of what is now called ConversionWise, but used to be Landing Page Guys. But you've also started and stopped a few different ideas. So I think you are one of those serial entrepreneurs that a lot of the listeners of our Lead Pages podcast tend to be. Give me a little bit of an example of like when you first got started as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, and then as somebody who runs a company. What was the impetus for you? What caused you to do that route instead of being an employee somewhere else?
Great question. I like this sort of whole origin looking back. I actually wrote a post on my Twitter about a month ago. I've recently got into Twitter, and I wrote a post on my Twitter kind of recapping the past. I suddenly realized that I've been online for 15 years. Made my first bit of money about 15 years ago, and I've founded ConversionWise, which, as you rightly said, was Landing Page Guys 10 years ago. So I kind of did this whole recap, and it's quite a nice kind of experience to do it, to like actually sit down and look back at what you've done. But how did I get into this world? I don't think anyone ever wakes up at school and thinks, I want to do conversion rate optimization. Like, I don't think you even know what that is at school, right? Like, I don't think we didn't even touch on like marketing, let alone, the deep depths of kind of CRO and conversion design. But I actually kind of stumbled across the CRO space, funny enough, through hip hop music. So I still am. I love hip hop music. And as a young kind of teenager, I was a full-time chef. I trained to be a chef. I was in the kitchens here in the UK. And I used to go online to research hip hop, like these battles. This was the days of like 8 Mile. Do you remember like the film 8 Mile with Eminem? I was kind of obsessed with those rap battles, and I was going online. I was on these different forums, and basically one thing led to another. And actually, my first ever website was a forum. So my kind of true passions are communities and CRO. So I've always launched forums and communities, and I've always loved CRO. And on one of these hip hop forums, I actually met another guy who was in Wales who introduced me to CPA marketing. So a form of affiliate marketing, which some of your listeners may have heard of, is cost per action marketing. It basically means that for every action you get someone to take, like fill out a survey, you get a cost. So you get like a bit of revenue. And this lad introduced me to CPA marketing, and we joined this CPA network. Again, for those of the listeners who are as old as me, it was a network called CPA Lead that some of you might remember, but CPA Lead was genius. It had like a live chat. So you would log into this network to see your like affiliate stats and how much you've earned for the day. And they'd have this live chat. And I basically was trying to figure out how to conquer CPA marketing. I was asking everyone. I was still a chef. I was like, how do we do this? But the annoying thing is no one was revealing their secrets, right? It was all quite kind of close to people's chests. They were afraid that if they shared it would get saturated. And I was this young, naive lad, still a chef, still listening to his hip hop music. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to start a forum about CPA marketing. So I started this community and this forum about CPA marketing purely for one reason. I didn't know how to monetize a community. I didn't even know you could make money from a community, but purely for the reason that I was going to invite people from this chat over to my forum so that they could be a little bit more elaborate on what they do, because everyone inside the CPA lead chat was like so like closed in, right? So I created this forum. I remember I did the whole, I think you guys have Shark Tank, right? We have a program called Dragon's Den, which is very similar. And I did the whole Dragon's Den or Shark Tank pitch to my father and my grandfather at the time. And I can remember sitting them down and saying to them, look, I need 150 quid. It's going to cover a vBulletin license back in the day, vBulletin with the forum software that you used, a domain and a bit of hosting. And they, in return, would get 40% of this business. So thankfully, they both said they were in. They gave me the money. I started this community. And it was mad. Like within like 3-4 weeks, I had like several hundred people join the community. And I was like, this isn't like, how has this happened? Like, I didn't even think this was going to be a community that people joined. Long story short, I owned that community for, I think, roughly about 10 years. And it was the first real business I had online. And we turned it into, we renamed it called Affiliate Fix. It was all about affiliate marketing. And to date, it is the largest ever affiliate community online. And I actually sold that business back in 2017 to Neil Patel, which is quite cool. I actually found someone, funny enough, on that community. So all my kind of, I guess, businesses and ideas and stuff have come from networking in forums and communities. And I found someone in that community. Bear in mind, this was a global community. At this time that I met Andy, my co-founder, I think we probably had about 10,000 members. It's now got 250,000 plus members, but I think we had about 10,000 members. And the beauty of vBulletin is that in your profile, it said where you were from. You could put like your location. And this was a global forum. I mean global as in there were people all over the world joining this community. And all of a sudden, this guy pops up and it said like Andy, and he wrote like a post about affiliate marketing and it said Bristol. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I'm from Bristol. Like, is this guy like stalking me, or is my girlfriend playing a joke on me or something? So anyway, I kind of hit him up and said, look, Andy, this is nuts. I'm from Bristol as well. How about we meet for a coffee? And I always remember my girlfriend at the time, I'm married to her now, 13 years on. I think I've got that right. She said, don't get in touch with this guy. You don't know who he could be. He could be some weirdo. Like, don't invite him to our house. This was like before the days of like Tinder or meeting people online or whatever. And anyway, we met and we've been business partners since. And it was with him that we actually founded Landing Page Guys, somewhat 11 years ago now, and got into the CRO space. And it was basically because there was a lot of people on the affiliate community who saw the design of the community and loved it, because I found an amazing designer who still works with us to the day, by the way, and asked if they could use him. And I basically arbitraged his designs to begin with, created a company, created this idea. And yeah, along the way, tens and tens of failed websites and ideas, but Affiliate Fix and Landing Page Guys now conversion-wise were the two that stuck, basically.
That's amazing. And this, maybe if we flip the tables around someday, I'll share my story of origin
Please.
On a membership forum as well.
We have more in common than we think. I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. So the next question I have for you around that is, within your community, as you grew, there was a time, I'm sure, where you were like, I need to monetize this in some way. What was one of the first ways that you wound up generating some revenue from that initial, basically research project that you had?
It was funny. Like I say, I wasn't clued up to the art of internet monetization at this time. I probably didn't even know what the word monetize meant. I didn't really know I could make money from a forum. I just did it to bring people closer together. And I think that's probably something that if anyone starting a business can take from this, like I've always believed in that, like the money will follow, and people get obsessed with kind of like obsessing over how can I make money from this. But actually, if you build a community and you build 1,000 true fans, the money will always follow. And that's just a bit of a segue. But we started, actually, funny enough, one of our, the first person to ever hire us at Landing Page Guys, who we built some landing pages out for, and he actually grew our company substantially as a kind of mentor and our friend and customer, was a guy called Tim Bird. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of who Tim is, but probably a lot of your listeners are. He's nicknamed the godfather of Facebook. He started a community called AdLeaks, just very successful Facebook marketer, basically. And he used to own an affiliate network. So he hit me up on CPA Fix, it used to be called now affiliatefix.com. And he said, can I pay you to put my banner advertising this is like display ads back in God knows when it was. Can I pay you to put my banner on your forum so that people can click through and join my network? And then as publishers, they can earn through my network, and I can obviously earn commissions from them. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, whoa, like I can make money from this? You're going to pay me just to put like a stupid static banner on my site with a link? And I was like, hell yeah, you can pay me, Tim. And anyway, me and Tim got really close. And he was our first customer at Landing Page Guys. But to answer your question, when we were actually fully kind of operational, sort of 6-7 years in, making some really good money before we sold the site, the main monetization channels were display banners. And one thing we did, which transformed our business, is we went from monthly packages to 6 and 12 monthly packages. So instead of saying you can advertise for 1 month, we would say, no, we only work with serious networks. You have to pay 6 months up front or 12 months up front, which just meant that we could work with more serious companies on bigger CPMs, etc. And then a huge driver of revenue was affiliate marketing. It was what we were doing, but we were doing it through companies like Leadpages, for etc. So what we would do, and we still do this today, me and Andy have another company that is doing relatively well, that we can talk about or not talk about, it doesn't matter, but it's a similar model. So what we would do is we would approach a Leadpages, for example, and we would say, hey guys, you have an amazing software that our audience would love to use. It seems like you've got an affiliate program. All we do is ask for two things. We ask for a commission for everyone we send over, and we ask for an exclusive discount coupon or bonus for our members. So we would have like a discounts page on Affiliate Fix. It's still there to date. If anyone wants to check out how it's displayed, etc., it works. Where we would say, right, all Affiliate Fix members get 50% off the first month at Leadpages, plus we would then get a kickback, and we would grow. The best thing about affiliate commissions on that level is they're recurring. They compound over time, and the more people you send in, if the softwares are good and they retain their low churn, it just compounds and compounds and compounds. So it's really good.
Yeah, I think anyone listening who can incorporate affiliate marketing of any SaaS business really adds a very lucrative revenue stream, and I would highly recommend it. Obviously with Leadpages, but there's a lot of different tools out there too that you can use.
Agreed.
Now, you have started a few other companies along the way, so I'm curious, what has you either evolve, pivot, or stop a business idea that you have? Because I'm sure you have more than you can handle. What kind of go through your mind and your strategic methods that has you choose
I
one of
mean,
those pathways?
absolutely. The ones that come up to me, like I have literally, you started this interview by saying, that kind of fall into that serial entrepreneur bracket. I guess I kind of do, because I get a kick. We have like a full team now over at ConversionWise, the 30 plus of us. And me and Andy are we're not away from the business, we're in the day to day, but I get different kicks than Andy gets. So I get kicks from new ideas, whether it's a new website, it's new branding, it's a new solution that we're launching. I enjoy two things. Well, three. I like quick wins. I get kicks out of new things, and I love talking. You can probably tell I can talk for England. That's the phrase, and I get very passionate when talking about entrepreneurship, CRO, etc. But I'm really happy when I can launch new things. So I think I learned this later on in my entrepreneurial career. The last kind of recent few years, that shiny object syndrome is real. And I think we used to launch too much. We just used to try everything, and then you get distracted from the main thing. And, now we keep the main thing. We have two businesses and we're growing them pretty well. Over the years, I've launched so many different communities, businesses, forums, ideas. I think one that really stands out to me that makes me laugh is I partnered with a guy called Scott Richter, who is a very well-known entrepreneur, media buyer, domain broker. And he had the domain airline.com. So me and him partnered to launch airline.com. And that's not the kind of funny bit. Is the funny part is that I'm petrified of flying. So I haven't flown since I was 14, and I've only ever flown twice in my life. So the cheap of me launching airline.com as a community, a forum for frequent travelers and airline reviews and discussions was quite funny. That project didn't work out for one reason or another, but that was quite funny. But there's lots of projects that I've kind of failed in, and some that I've been very lucky and won in, and that the wins are obviously highs are better than the lows, but it's very cliche to say, but it's the journey that I kind of enjoy. So I'm never going to stop new ideas, new businesses, new solutions, because that's just who I am. But at the moment, we've kind of stopped, and we are just focusing on the two companies we have.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. You have the two different companies. One is basically an agency that does design work, and the other is an education platform. Did one come before the other? And when you look at those two types of businesses, there's a lot of people listening right now who are service providers, and they're contemplating having an education arm where they can have a
Yeah.
digital course or something like that. So what kind of advice have you learned that you would love to have 5 years ago or 10 years ago when you were evolving your current brand of ConversionWise?
So we were traditionally an agency for the past, I think for the first 9 years of our existence. And then about 7 months ago, we launched our Conversion Rate Academy, which is, as you say, like an educational kind of membership site, a monthly recurring kind of membership site where you get access to training, wireframes, design swipe files, a community. We do weekly calls, etc. And the reason we did that is because we fell into, we're kind of like a victim of our own success, if you will. So when we launched this company about 10, 11 years ago, we were called Landing Page Guys. And we essentially did what we said on the tin, like we wanted to become the go-to people for creating landing pages. Again, we kind of fell victim to our kind of own success where we would just say yes to anyone. We niched down as far as we weren't this marketing company who did like Facebook, Google Ads, SEO, conversion rates, landing pages. We were just landing pages, but we worked with everyone. So we worked with your solopreneur, we worked with your Fortune 500 company. I can reel off a list of companies we've worked with that are huge, but I can also reel off a list of people who are, your brick and mortar or someone who's, got their own little personal business and they just want a high converting page. Like we just said yes to everyone. And the problem with that is we didn't really have like a kind of a very targeted demographic for our business. We were kind of like the yes men. So what we realized after 9-10 years is two problems. One is we kind of catered to everyone, but two was we didn't build as a business. We didn't build any recurring or predictable revenue into our business, and that has actually held us back for years because we were just stuck in this cycle of churning out pages. Like we churn out between 50 and 100 pages per month. So like we were just churning out pages, but then at the first of the month we would start at zero. From a monetary perspective, we had no recurring revenue, we had nothing. So we realized that in order to scale and in order to get where we wanted to be, we had to change that. So the Academy ticked two boxes. One, it's recurring revenue for us, which is nice because we can now predict, a certain chunk of revenue that we're making every month, so we can allocate that to different departments to scale, etc. But two, it allows us to stick by our company mission. So we rebranded ConversionWise, as you said, about a year and a half ago now, and we kind of redid our kind of core values, our company mission, purpose, etc. And we want to be known as the biggest and most trustable conversion rate company in the world. So we have huge ambitions, but our company mission is to make high conversion rates achievable for everyone. Now, if you come to the agency side of our business, our pricing starts at 5K. That's not accessible or achievable for everyone. So the Academy was also kind of a part of that. It was like, okay, so how do we take our frameworks and our learnings that we've developed over the last 10 years, which by the way, work 9 times out of 10, and make these accessible to more people. So we kind of now have the, I guess like the kind of stepping stones in anyone's journey from solopreneur to, massive company. It could be run by one person, of course it could, but like budgets and different phases of your journey. So we have the Academy, we have free content. So we give a lot of free content out on my Twitter, on YouTube. We then have our next step, which is our Academy, $97 per month, low barrier to entry. You get all your training, etc. But it's a sort of done with you. You have to actually go and implement the work. We then have our audit solution, which, we look at your pages and audit them and give you suggestions, high impact suggestions based on your pages to increase your conversion rates, which sits in the middle. And then we have our agency tier, which is like a done for you solution. We will literally get into your data analytics, we'll look at your pages and we'll redesign these pages for you and give you your files, and you can then go and get them debbed up and kind of use a builder or whatever you want to do to do it. So we've kind of, we've over the last year or two, we've kind of refocused, reaffirm that mission, and now we have the 4 solutions within that one business, which is it's really exciting. It's good because we've got different departments, etc., and it's good.
Yeah, I want to highlight 2 things real quick. One is when you do have that recurring education model, as you mentioned, it's predictable revenue. When somebody says, I don't want to work with you anymore, the hit is very small compared to if
Exactly
you lose
that.
the landing page clients that are paying you 5K plus and they say no more. It's a little different story. But also basically you're training your future customer who is going to be able to then grow into being your customer, which I think is really important for anyone listening. If you don't have a lower ticket entry point to offer some folks that you want to serve, that can then become better qualified, essentially leads that you've earned money on for future work.
That was
So I
it. It
think
was
both
just
those are really
monetizing exactly. It was monetizing a portion of the audience that we couldn't before. We couldn't fulfill them. We didn't have a solution for them. I think it was Tony Robbins, and I'm going to get this quote completely wrong. Sorry, not Tony Robbins. Who was it? It was Grant Cardone, obviously the kind of king of sales, who said, if you end the phone call without making a sale, it wasn't because that person didn't want to buy from you. It was because you didn't have a solution that was right for him. So like we kind of always have that in our head as well. I'm not a big fan of Grant Cardone, but it's the whole point of like, we now have a solution for everyone within the kind of cycle of marketing online and launching your own business when it comes to CRO. And that kind of all feeds into our mission of making high conversion rates achievable for everyone. And also our kind of goal of becoming the most recognizable and trustable conversion rate company on the planet. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have one more question before we get into the conversion rate optimization tactics and strategies, et cetera. And that is this idea of being in a company that's growing successfully. It's 8-9 years in, and you decide to rebrand it and rename it. And I imagine that was really scary and went through lots of different iterations. As you look back now, anything that you learned that others can shortcut to a success, or something you do differently if you ever wound up having to rebrand like that again?
Yeah, these are really cool questions. You're making me think. Honestly, the process, it was almost needed for us. It was like a hard stop because we were in this. It's very hard after 9-10 years of doing the same thing over and over again every single month to just stop that wheel. It's very hard to then come out and say that we are offering different solutions or we are slightly changing this solution. But I feel like it was a break that me and Andy, my co-founder, definitely needed. Like we needed a shakeup. We'd become far too comfortable. We become, we'd be sort of, I guess you would say, a lifestyle business where we had a really great team, but if we weren't there for several weeks, it didn't really matter. And that's fine for many people. And, most people start a family and, I've got 2 daughters now, both under 3 years old, probably wouldn't have done this at that time of the life, but I'm always up for a challenge. And as I said, I love working on new things. So to me, it was super exciting. One thing we did do is we used, I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't Hatchwise, but very similar for the naming convention of the company. So we didn't come up with ConversionWise ourselves. We paid, you can actually run naming contests, which is quite cool. Mm-hmm. You pay $5 to $100 and then, you probably get about 300 suggestions from people who are experts in kind of finding. You can filter for available domains, but you can also filter for premium domains under a certain budget, etc. I think we ended up paying about $10K for ConversionWise, which for a kind of very brandable, one-word pronounceable .com which wasn't available, I think is very, very good. One funny story is we did get a cease and desist about a month after from TransferWise, now known as Wise.com. But their lawyers were really, really amicable and really, really cool guys. They actually basically said, as long as we don't ever go into foreign exchange or money transfers, we're kind of all good with the name ConversionWise, which was nice. So we've got that on paper. But no, I actually really enjoyed the journey. And we made a huge thing of it. So, we're a small company, really small company. As I said, we're about 30 people. But it was so nice after 10 years to actually celebrate what we've done and stop and, make plans for the next however many years. And, we got everyone together in Bristol. We hired out a venue. We got all the signage kind of made that if you're watching a clip, you can probably see behind me. But if you're listening on a podcast, we had these kind of signs done and we rented out Spa. We invited all our friends and family. And it was really nice because I could be accountable. I stood up in front of, say, 50 or 60 of our closest friends and family and became accountable to them on behalf of me and Andy and said, look, in the next kind of 5 years, this is what we want to achieve with our business. We want to, again, sorry to reaffirm it, be, the most recognizable conversion rate company in the world. And I'm accountable to every single one of you in this room. And it was really a really cool thing to do. So, I think our experience with it was really good. And it also gets you back in front of the same audience, but with a fresh spin. So those people who have been used to seeing the same color emails, the same logo, the same name from you, to then have this kind of a bit of a buzz and excitement about, what you're doing after 10 years. It's been good. I've enjoyed it.
I want to pause here for just a moment and ask you listening, has this episode already inspired you to want to ramp up your online marketing? Well, you're in luck because we have a special offer for our podcast listeners that will help you make your dream a reality. Get 30% off Leadpages when you start your free trial today. You can build high-converting websites and landing pages in minutes or hours, promote your special offers with pop-ups and alert bars, and track your results with in-depth analytics. Go to leadpages.com/TLG30 to save 30% and start building your business. That's leadpages.com/TLG30 to get the deal before time expires. Now, let's get to the second half of the episode. Appreciate you sharing your journey and the lessons you've learned along the way. Let's change gears now over to conversion rate optimization, your bread and butter. And one of the things that I think comes to mind first is you and your team have done thousands and thousands of audits of landing pages. I imagine if you're like me, I do those every week for conversion coaching sessions. You see common mistakes that people just keep doing. And I imagine if you could wave a magic wand to rid the world of crappy landing pages, there's 2 or 3 things.
That's what we're trying to do.
Right. What 2 or 3 common mistakes are you seeing again and again and again that people could do really well just to eliminate those pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm guessing I'm right in saying that majority of your audience is going to be in lead generation. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do sales as well, but mostly service providers and folks that they want a relationship with their client at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. So what? Just to give context to what kind of we do and what we work from as a kind of methodology, I guess, from CRO. I split CRO into several different buckets. So traditional CRO is, I would say, leans into ongoing testing. So it leans into laying out your landing page, how you think, relying on kind of guesswork. I think this will convert. I run some data to it. I spend some media on it. I send an email, whatever that may be. I track my conversion rate. I then may create like a split test. I may alter several things, or I may create like an A/B test or multivariate test where I edit like one thing and see if it has an uplift. But I have to go again. I have to then run more data, see if it converts better. If it doesn't, it's back to the control. If not, it's, reiterate again and go again. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that at all. However, what we do is we try to get it right from day one. So from the last kind of 10 years of banging out, God knows how many thousands and thousands and thousands of landing pages for hundreds, if not thousands of customers, we have built up a framework. We call it our kind of like blueprint or our framework, which says, if these elements are in these certain places and your page follows a certain framework, it is 9 times out of 10 more likely to convert than relying on like guesswork. There's like a solid framework. And this is kind of what we teach in our academy. But to us, it's more about not what you don't do, it's what you do. It's where these elements go. And I'm very happy to kind of run through what I would see as a high converting framework for a landing page. But we focus on, psychological principles. We focus on copywriting. We focus on, different design elements in different places. But as far as kind of things that people shouldn't do and things that we see consistently, it's things like not going direct response enough. So having several different call to actions on different landing pages. Let's say, for example, you're looking for someone, your ultimate goal, not focusing on your ultimate conversion goal. So let's say your ultimate conversion goal is an opt-in for a webinar. And on your landing page, you have a link that says learn more. You then have a phone number that you want people to call. You then have a form at the bottom if you want people to submit a question. Conflicting too many call to actions and too many conversion goals is a huge mistake. You need to go very, very direct response. Keep I hate to say it, keep the main thing. Like, you want that opt-in. Everything on your page should be about that opt-in. And if it's not, you should be handling why people aren't going to opt in for your webinar. So we see that consistently. There's the kind of nightmare things like people putting social share icons on their landing pages. people having navigational links that take them off to different pages, people using social widgets is an awful one. Making sure that your pages are cross-browser compatible is a huge one. So a lot of people don't test enough. There's things like Browser Stack, which is costly, but there are sort of free alternatives and other sources, softwares that you can use. But often we've seen huge mistakes where, you've got your massive companies driving hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of data to a landing page, and they haven't even cross-browser checked it. So, although it appears great on Chrome because I use Chrome and I'm looking at it, the CTA or the form might be missing on Safari. We've seen mistakes like that. Responsiveness is obviously one as well. But yeah, it's more to us. It's more about the framework and what you should have on your page as opposed to, mistakes that are made on pages, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to hit home on one more point, when you say responsiveness, you're talking about different devices, right? Especially mobile traffic being more than half most of the time, people ignoring can be really
absolutely. Different devices, and if you want to get really geeky, different versions of those devices as well, right? So like, the iOS, not iOS, your iPhone kind of 8 doesn't view the same as your iPhone 12. I'm sorry, I don't know what the latest iPhone is, but yeah, I've got a very, very old iPhone I'm looking at right now.
Hey, I have an 8 right now too. I'm going to be upgrading to a 14 probably sometime over the
14, there you go. So I thought it was 12, the latest one. There you go.
Yeah. So you mentioned this idea of different purposes, and I think that's the big thing, right? Make the main thing the main thing. For some of our audience, they're in your sweet spot of like e-commerce and folks that are selling something on that page, and others are really looking for lead generation to do a service. How do you think differently in CRO when you're dealing with kind of that human element where they're trying to have a relationship with their client versus meeting the need of the customer through some kind of a physical product that they're selling? How do you look at those differently, if at all?
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. I think, again, the elements stay the same. So I think maybe I'd love to run through some of the elements that we kind of think are crucial on landing pages. Maybe we can do that next. But the elements kind of speak across whether you're selling memberships, whether you're selling a course, whether you're doing consultancy, whether you're doing lead gen, student loan, debt, you name it. The elements stay the same, whether you're selling a physical product. It's just the meat and gravy around those elements that changes. So let's say, for example, a physical product, it depends what product you're selling. If you're selling something like a pillow, for example, you do and you will want to focus on the pain points. You want to focus on like associate the problem, market the problem, sell the solution. So, you want to touch on, do you struggle with neck pain? Are you aching throughout the day? Are you struggling to sleep? Like that's associating the problem, and then you market the solution with your authority, and then your solution, which is we sell the pillow that solves the back pain, etc. Benefit. It's the same when you come to selling, for example, courses and memberships. It's first and foremost associating a problem. It's then marketing a solution once you've established your authority. So, for example, we're just launching our new site this Friday, touchwood. I've been staring at it for 5 days and I'm going crazy. We, on our homepage, we have updated the story to associate with a problem. So we start by saying, hey guys, look, we know the last few years have been tough. COVID's hit, less spending online, iOS 14's hit, you can't track reliable data. Supply chains have been hit because of COVID, etc., and wars. Plus, you're relying on guesswork and no reliable testing. And then we say, oh, well, thankfully for you, we've navigated hundreds of our clients through these troublesome times by increasing their conversion rates with no additional ad spend, associate authority. And then it's like, here's the solution. We are conversion wise. So the kind of messaging changes depending on what you're doing and what you're selling. For example, if you're selling maybe a kind of vitamin, you probably wouldn't go into as much detail of the kind of problem solution, but it all comes down to, like I said, the kind of layout, the framework and the elements that you have on your pages. But I think the kind of, like I say, the meat and the gravy, I think that's a very British expression, but the kind of substance around those elements changes depending on what you're doing.
Yeah. Vitamin is also very British too, but we won't go into that pronunciation.
Vitamin.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
It's so good. So yeah, let's dive into the elements then. Let's give our listeners a good idea of what are the order of operations, so to speak, for higher conversions.
Yes, perfect. Love it. So I'm not going to touch on them all because there is a lot. And like I say, this is stuff that we've kind of stuffed inside our academy and been building for the last 10 years. But let's start from the top. So we always talk about above the fold. It's the section that kind of loads as soon as you go on a landing page, whether that's a desktop or mobile. It's what appears above the fold on your landing page. And we tend to talk about 6 key elements that have to appear above the fold on your landing page. First and foremost, it's a strong value proposition. I probably think single-handedly this is the most important element to have on your landing page. There's a stat that says it takes between kind of 3 to 5 seconds to get your value proposition across on your landing page before you lose that consumer. And we're talking about like cold clicks here. So like clicking an ad, click an email where they've never seen you before. You need to tell them and associate with them within that value proposition within kind of like 3 to 5 seconds. So you start with a strong value proposition. How do you build a strong value proposition? We tend to focus on the benefit. So a lot of people get this wrong. We work with a lot of Shopify customers, people who do e-com and sell online, and they don't utilize their product titles. So let's take a vitamin, for example. We kind of use this in our training. We use a product called Conversion Vit, which is our kind of conversion vitamin. Now, 9 times out of 10, students or clients of ours would just name their product Conversion Vit. What we do is we take that product title and on the end of it, we put a colon and we put Conversion Vit and we say, get healthier and live a happier life in 7 days. And that instantly transforms your product title to a strong value proposition, because in that value proposition, you need to focus on the benefit, that transformation, that kind of end goal of your product. So that's super, super important. Number 2 is we have to include social proof. So social proof includes anything from reviews, case studies, testimonials. Typically speaking, because the real estate is so valuable on mobile, to get all these elements in, we just use a simple one-liner. So we have in the UK, where Trustpilot is huge, we have like, say, for example, 5 Trustpilot stars. You could use 5 emoji stars. You could use 5 icon stars. Leadpages gives you the flexibility to add icons, etc., really, really easily. Again, and this probably alludes back to your question of like problems you see. Most people will stop at saying 4.95 stars. They'll just have the stars and they'll just say 4.9-5. Okay, that is really, again, undervalued real estate that we can leverage through social proof. So instead, we have the stars, we have 4.9, but we say 4.9 out of 5 stars by 300 plus verified customers or 300 plus happy customers. So what we teach in our framework, it's not rocket science, but every single thing that we do moves that needle like a tiny percent. But you imagine when you start to do 20 of the things, we can literally like double your conversion rates. So number 2 is social proof, having social proof above the fold. Number 3 is leveraging trust and credibility. So trust and credibility is super, super important. What can we do on our landing page when a cold consumer clicks our ad or an email or wherever they come from to instantly instill trust in our brand from a consumer perspective? So what can we do to do that? So we like to use things like icons and text. So again, below that nav bar in the header, let's say we're selling an e-com product. Let's go back to the Conversion Vit product. We use our trust policies. So it's things like money back guarantees. It's things like free returns, 24/7 support, COVID safe. When it comes to lead gen, it's things like, we talk about the form. So SSL secure. We will never spam you. We only call on convenient times, those kind of things. So what can we do to instantly instill trust? And when you do this, use icons plus text because it works as a visual. Don't just use text. So we can have a little navigation, a little toolbar underneath our navigation bar that just scrolls with those elements. That works really, really well. That's point number 3. Number 4 is strong product imagery. So it goes without saying, when it comes to e-com, you need to have strong images of your product. But again, a mistake that we see a lot is that people just have pictures of their product. They just have these kind of like light boxed, like photoshopped with a nice plain background, product in the middle. Looks great. However, you're not making the most out of that real estate in your scroll of your images. So you need UGC content. You need pictures of product placement. So you need to put your product in different situations and different scenarios, and you need to use it more. When it comes to lead gen as well, there's nothing more powerful apart from your value proposition than your image. So if you're doing things like life insurance, funeral cover, solar, whatever it may be, that image above the fold is super, super important. And you need to use something that's emotive. So if you're doing life insurance, for example, use a picture of a family who are hugging and are happy, because you need someone to come to this page and think, shit, that's not me. Like, I need to be this. I need this life insurance. You need to touch on that emotive thing. So number 4 is imagery. Number 5 is urgency and scarcity. So how can we add a subtle, and I underline subtle, form of urgency and scarcity? Like, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I've lived through the ages of like rush my trial, big flashy banners, like only 2 left, get it now. And like, that just doesn't work anymore. So I think you can do this subtly. So we like to do things like, let's say, for example, you're a consultant or a coach, having underneath your buy buttons, just having like a little green emoji, like the red circle, green circle emoji, and just saying something like, making it dynamic. So just saying something like, now open for January enrollments, or three consultations left for January. Again, if you're selling products through ecom, having something underneath that buy button that just says something like, using the amber emoji and just saying, low in stock, order now to avoid disappointment. And this works on seasonality as well. You can really touch on kind of like Christmas, winter, January, winter sale now on, etc. So some form of urgency. So we've gone value proposition, we've gone social proof, trust and credibility, strong product imagery, urgency and scarcity, and then, what am I missing? Okay. So we really like to focus on having bullet point driven benefits above the fold. So again, a mistake, and probably I should have answered this question before when you asked me it. It's easier when you're rolling through in your mind the perfect kind of layout. Is a lot of people will have plain paragraphs of text, and people don't read plain paragraphs of text. Like, people, we live in such a fast-paced world, right? Like, everyone's just on their mobile or on their desktop. They're going between Facebook and buying a product or looking on your landing page, versus WhatsApp. Like, we're just so fast. We consume content so quickly these days that if you have like long paragraphs of text, they're not going to get consumed. So what I suggest you do is take those long paragraphs of text and transform them into like 3 to 5 benefit-driven bullet points. So we like to use emojis just to draw attention. And then, short, concise, benefit-driven bullet points are going to convert way, way better than long paragraphs of text. So can I keep going?
Yes. I don't think anybody listening would tell you, stop it, Oliver. You're telling us too many good things.
I appreciate it. So that's our kind of above the fold. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole framework because it's quite detailed, but we would then take them through. We've kind of reinvented the AIDA principle. We don't claim to be the creators of the AIDA principle or anything like that, but we've kind of reinvented it. The only problem is ours isn't pronounceable. So ours is ATIDFA. And instead, for those of you who are listening who don't know what the AIDA principle stands for, it's attention, interest, desire, action. It's basically your layout of how your landing page should be. So attention above the fold, then you pique people's interest, then you show them desire through social proof, and then you make them take action. We've added 2 new sections in because we've found over the last 10 years and lots of data and testing, et cetera, that these 2 new sections add huge uplifts to your conversion rates. So we go attention, which is what I've just told you above the fold. Then we go transformation. So this is really important. And this works on lead gen. It works on consultancy. It works on e-com. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Go and look at our site. We leverage this. So transformation is basically telling people in 3 simple steps how they can opt into your product or buy your product. And then the third step is the transformation. So as an example, let's just take Leadpages, for example. Step 1 would be select your package. And it might say underneath, we have flexible and affordable packages for all different sizes of businesses. Step 2 is all about the delivery of your product or your solution. So step 2 would be like, build your pages in minutes. We have high converting templates because Oliver's given us his framework. And then we have high converting templates that you can launch in a matter of minutes. And then step 3 is always the outcome, but it's the benefit. It's not have a nice landing page. It's earn more money, or it's profit more from the same ad spend. So it's like, because we have high converting pages, you profit more. Let's go back to that vitamin product. The outcome, the step 3, isn't having a vitamin every day. It's living a healthier and happier life. It's that transformation. So that's the transformation step. Then we go into the interest step, going down the fold. So interest is all about benefits and features. We split it into 2 sections. You want to start with your benefits. You then want to go into your features. So let's take a vitamin, for example, or let's take Leadpages, for example, because everyone is going to know what Leadpages is on this podcast. You would start first and foremost with what are the benefits that someone's going to get out of using Leadpages? And it's not that you have 100 different templates. It's not that you have a draggable UI UX. Those are the features. And often we talk about too much about the features. It's actually that you can launch your new business ideas in seconds. It's that you can use proven templates that convert like crazy. It's you can earn more revenue. You can increase your lifetime value. You can increase an AOV from a customer. It's money in my pocket. It's actually the end goal for me. That's what you want to start with. Then you can lead into your benefits. So that's when you can go, we kick Aunt Bance's ass with our builder. We have all these shiny objects. We have the best UI UX draggable builder. That's when you can go into your kind of features, and that's the interest section. Then you have desire, so it's social proof. So it's testimonials, reviews, case studies. Then we insert our new section, which is F, which stands for FAQ. So FAQ is really important. People underestimate an FAQ, the power of an FAQ on a page. And the only objective of the FAQ is to handle any objections. So you are lucky enough, by the way, you are super, super lucky. You are a CRO expert. If you have got someone that hooked that they have scrolled down to this section of your page naturally and found your FAQ, that you don't want to give them any excuse to leave your landing page. So go and survey your audience and ask them for the 10 questions what they had about your product that your page doesn't tell them, and put those questions into your FAQ. Typically speaking, when it comes to e-com, it's things like deliverability, refunds, returns, where do you ship, how long does it take, and then a few product specific questions. When it comes to lead gen, it's things like, will you call me back? When will I get a quote? When it comes to the webinar, can I watch the webinar instantly? Can I download the webinar? Can I get a replay? Are you upselling on the webinar? Like, what are these questions that people are asking them? Put them in FAQ, handle the objections, and less people will bounce. And then it's action. So we've gone FAQ, then it's action. One clear call to action. Keep the main thing. What do I want people to do? If I want them to join a webinar, watch webinar instantly now. If I want them to buy a product, get mine now. If I want them to opt into my funeral cover, get your free funeral cover quote now. And we always on our call to actions, we use directional cues, so a chevron or a pointing emoji, and we always use the word now. So you need to spark action. Put the word now on it. It will increase your click-throughs.
That's awesome. So there's a lot there, obviously, and folks who want to explore more can enjoy Conversion Rate Academy, obviously. We've also built a lot of these elements into the templates, as you mentioned, at Leadpages, one of which is that FAQ. So those of you using a Leadpages template that doesn't include an FAQ, you have your section templates where you can just drag one big section. It's got 8 questions ready to go. One of the things I love to highlight with that is you're telling people who this product is for and who it's not for in that section. And so I do agree it's an underrated element on most people's pages. So I'm really grateful that you highlighted all those elements, but especially that one. All right, as we come to a close, Oliver, thank you so much for all those great tips. Beyond the scope of conversion rate tools, I imagine with all the different ideas that you have, there's maybe a tool or two that you've started to gravitate towards using in your daily life that just made your business run more smoothly. Anything come to mind that you'd like to share with the audience that they might not already know about?
Yeah, tech stacks. So what do we use? We use, because we have lots of clients, we use Monday. So Monday is our kind of client-facing portal, I guess. That's where we handle all of our kind of onboardings. We actually put our sales pipeline in there as well. So we run all of our operations on there. Our SOPs, our hub is in there. Our clients are all in there. So we're a big fan of Monday. That integrates with Slack. So again, quite cliche, but we use Slack for communication because we're completely remote. It's only me and my co-founder who are in the office here in Bristol. We do have so I think there's 12 of us in the UK. So we do have a team that connects, but they all work from home there. They all prefer that. And then personally, I mean, I've kind of been around, like me and Andy, my co-founder, we kind of, we geek out on note apps. So things like Notion, etc., what we kind of geek out on, but I still stick to Apple Notes. I still feel it's the best for me. I've introduced like check marks, and then I have a separate list per project, etc., not to get, and then I break it down into per project and then I break it down into day, because I think if you have them all on one list, it's just mind blown, right? You look at it and it's like there's so many things to do. So I take each day I take like an important task out of the individual notes and put it into today's note. And that's worked really well for me. And then luckily, I think it's quite good not to have these sort of shiny objects, but keep it simple. So I love Google Sheets. I'm not technical in any way, shape, or form. Luckily, Andy is. You can tell, like, I do the talking. He's the actual brains that does the workings out. But getting him to do some really cool things in Google Sheets is great. I love accountability of sheets. I love checklists. This may be not a kind of I guess business tip, but one thing that I found really helped me grow as a person, as a father, as a businessman, an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, is having accountability within a Google Sheet. So every single month, myself, Andy, and a couple of our kind of local friends will create a sheet with 4 things that we want to achieve for that month. So let's say, for example, it might be, I want to work out every single day. I'm a huge fitness freak. I love fitness. I want to work out every single day. I want to have a cold shower for 30 seconds. I want to read 10 pages of a book. And I want to make sure that I spend 2 hours with my kids without my phone and TV. These are actually my last month's goals, by the way. We will note them down in the spreadsheet, and then you'll have like a day, every single day. The date will be running in the column, and then you'll have a tick box. And the second you get other people involved, you become accountable, but you can also gamify it. So Andy will have his tab, Max will have his tab, Steve will have his tab. They'll all have their full tasks, and they could be completely separate to mine. But I will not lose. So I make sure that every day without fail, even if I'm working out at like 11:30 at night, just to make sure I do it, I have to tick that green box, because I know the other lads are looking at me and I'm not going to lose against them. So I think that's a really cool hack just to get kind of things done in life. I really love that one.
I love it. That accountability piece.
Maybe not a software, but yeah.
No, that's Google Sheets is one of the more underrated productivity tools. I think people tend to leave and find the shiny things, and they wind up coming back again and again. That's the case for me.
Yeah.
My final question for you, and then I'd love to send you off to those 2 lovely daughters of yours to spend your family time, is you've run a lot of businesses. You've been productive. You've, I'm sure, run into obstacles though along the way. Do you have a mantra or a thought, something that kind of gets you to the other side of it when you do get stuck?
Yeah, great question. I actually put a tweet out about this yesterday. I was, I guess, maybe egotistical was the word. I don't know. For the first like 7-8 years of our business, like I thought I didn't need to read. I thought I knew it all. I didn't think I needed mentors, etc. And the second I got over that and opened up to like learning and mentors and reading, etc., I think our business transformed. So I would definitely say that that's something that I would suggest people do if they do feel like they kind of don't, know it all, because, my co-founder Andy was a huge reader, and I never used to read, and I used to get fed up with business books. I still think there should be a rule where no business book should be over 100 pages, because I've seen it time and time again when one book like reiterates the same thing for like 600 pages, and I get fed up. But like, I think it's really cool that if you could just learn one thing from that book that you can implement in your business, is huge, and you pay like £4 for it. But I'm a huge believer in trusting your gut. So a mentor taught me a couple of years ago, this is why I kind of got into that, because I didn't have a mentor, but now I have several mentors, taught me a couple of years ago to like, just trust your gut. Like 9 times out of 10, your gut is right. So if you have a decision to make, if you face a crossroads, if you have a problem, that first initial thought that comes to your head is normally the right one. You can talk yourself out of it. You can spend hours debating it, but I practice now just going with my gut. So I don't spend hours worrying anymore. I don't spend hours up all night putting out fires. I kind of just get it done by just going, right, whatever comes into my head in the first place is probably the right answer. Let's just go with it. And I also think karma is real. So I try and help as many people as possible, because I know it might not come back directly from that person, but indirectly someone else is going to pay it back to me at some stage.
That's awesome. Well, Oliver, this is a really rich conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of your tips around your entrepreneurial journey, conversion rate optimization, et cetera. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone wants to keep in touch, look me up on Twitter. I'm trying to get active there. So yeah, you can look me up at Oliver Kenyon. And we'd also love to give your listeners a 50% coupon off our Conversion Rate Academy. So you can find that at conversionrateacademy.com and just put in the coupon Leadpages, and we'll give you 50% off your first month. But I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
That's awesome.